Shen Wenlang, I'm pregnant. Gao Tu whispered the words in his heart 1,000 times, yet they would never leave his lips. Every day he carried a secret so heavy it made his chest ache, a secret born from the man he loved for over 10 years. That child growing inside him was a part of Shen Wenlang, yet Shen Wenlang had no idea, not even the slightest clue that the man he cherished had shared that night with him. The knowledge was intoxicating and terrifying all at once. Gao Tu's heart ached with longing, guilt, and a deep silent love that could never be spoken aloud. From the very moment the doctor confirmed the pregnancy, Gao Tu felt as if the floor had fallen from beneath him. The sterile white room of the hospital seemed colder than ever. "You're pregnant, Mr. Gao," the doctor said, carefully observing his reaction. The words echoed in Gao Tu's mind, repeating themselves like a hammer, relentless, impossible to silence. He thought of the night, of Wenling, confident and composed, the man who had unknowingly caused this. The man who had unknowingly left his mark. Gao Tu remembered every touch, every moment. The way Wenling had pinned him. The way his own heat had betrayed him, leaving him terrified and overwhelmed. The emotional and physical aftermath of that night haunted him every second. How could someone he loved so deeply, someone he had adored for over 10 years, touch him in such an uncontrollable, unintentional? Every day, Gao Tu forced himself to wake, to put on the mask of the composed, professional secretary, the man Wenling had always known him to be. Smiling, walking, speaking lightly, all carefully rehearsed, all hiding the turmoil within. But the facade was fragile, cracks forming under the weight of memories, under the pull of longing, under the fear for the child he carried. Every glance Wenling threw in his direction, every casual touch, every shared word reminded him of the one secret he could never speak. Every heartbeat reminded him that a part of the man he loved resided inside him, helpless and vulnerable, completely dependent on him. The pregnancy was dangerous, more than he had imagined. The doctor's warning echoed endlessly in his mind. Omegas need their mates during pregnancy. Their presence, their pheromones, help sustain the pregnancy. Without that, complications increase. Miscarriage, severe illness, even death is possible. The thought that carrying a child alone, without a mate, could be fatal made Gao Tu's chest tighten. But he could not terminate the pregnancy. This child was a piece of Wenling, a part of the man he had loved silently for a decade. Every fear, every anxiety, every pang of doubt was intensified by the knowledge that Wenling would never accept an Omega carrying his child. The cold words Wenling had said earlier haunted him. Get rid of it, of course. Gao Tu's emotions were a storm that threatened to drown him daily. The longing, the love, the fear, and the despair twisted inside him like a cruel knot. How could he stay composed at work? How could he sit next to Wenling, seeing him unaware, untouchable, and utterly oblivious to the life growing inside Gao Tu? Each interaction, each gesture, each glance reminded him of the impossible situation he was trapped in. He wished he could confess, to reveal everything, the truth of his identity as an Omega, the truth of the child he carried, the truth of his love, but the consequences would be catastrophic. The day he asked Wenling, "What would you do if your Omega fell pregnant?" was a turning point. Wenling's dismissive, heartless answer, "Get rid of it, of course," struck Gao Tu to the core. Fear, despair, and heartbreak merged into a suffocating weight that pressed down on him, leaving him breathless. In that instant, he realized he could no longer remain. If Wenling discovered he was an Omega, if he connected the dots, if he ever found out the child was his, it could be deadly. Gao Tu's secret, carefully protected for so long, was now a threat to both him and the child he carried. A few days later, Gao Tu submitted his resignation. The act was both agonizing and necessary. He had to protect the child, protect himself, and prevent Wenling from discovering the truth. The letter was formal, polite, professional, devoid of the emotional storm raging inside him. Leaving was the only way to ensure the child's safety. Leaving meant survival, but it also meant leaving behind the man he loved more than life itself. 10 years of companionship, of silent understanding, of unspoken connection, all now behind him. Inaccessible, unspoken. For Wenling, reading the resignation letter was like being struck in the chest. He felt hollow, confused, and disoriented. He could not understand why Gao Tu had left. The man who had been a constant presence for over a decade, the man who had quietly supported him, was gone. The emptiness left behind was suffocating, a hollow ache that filled every corner of the office. Wenling had no idea why, no clue about the storm Gao Tu had been facing, no knowledge of the child growing silently in the one he loved. Meanwhile, Gao Tu's days were a mixture of grief, secrecy, and careful calculation. He missed Wenling desperately, yet remained distant. Every memory, every shared moment, every subtle connection reminded him of the love he could not reveal, the life he must protect. Alone, he was tormented by anxiety, consumed by longing, and burdened by the responsibility of carrying a child alone. Each day was a balancing act between self-preservation, the child's safety, and the impossibility of his own desires. Evenings were worse. In the solitude of his apartment, Gao Tu would collapse into bed, exhausted by the emotional and physical strain. Memories of that night, the touch, the heat, the longing and the fear, pressed down on him like an unrelenting weight. The child within him was both his greatest joy and his greatest terror. Each kick was a reminder of life, a reminder of love, and a reminder of the danger that would follow if Wenling ever discovered the truth. The secrecy was suffocating. Every interaction with Wenling required precision, caution, and discipline. Every smile, every word, every gesture had to hide the storm inside. Gao Tu longed to speak, to reveal everything, to admit the truth, to cry out that he was carrying Wenling's child, that he was an Omega, that his love had never wavered, but he could not. The consequences would be too great, the risks unbearable. He could only endure the silent agony, protecting the child, protecting himself, and preserving the only thing he could: life and hope. The months that followed were a mix of sorrow, longing, and determination. Gao Tu navigated the office with caution, each day a silent struggle. Every glance from Wenling, every word, every shared space, reminded him of what he carried and what he could not reveal. The child was a constant reminder of both love and danger, of desire and fear. He was trapped in a liminal space, loving silently, protecting fiercely, and existing in the shadows of the man he adored. Gao Tu's resolve grew stronger with each passing day. He could not falter. He could not risk exposure. He could not allow Wenling's ignorance to turn into recklessness. Protecting the child, staying alive, keeping the secret, these became the driving forces behind every decision. He had chosen this path, chosen this sacrifice, chosen this lonely struggle for the sake of life and love. And yet, in the quiet moments, Gao Tu allowed himself to dream. Dream of a day when the secret could be revealed, when the child could exist without danger, when Wenling might understand, when their bond might transform from unspoken longing to shared reality. But those were dreams for the future, distant and fragile, glimpses of hope that kept him moving, even as every day reminded him of the impossibility of his situation.